Good morning, fathers of daughters. This is FMB Martin. Welcome to another live stream at Girl Dad YouTube channel. This YouTube channel is for fathers of daughters, girl dads. I bring to you education, information through instruction. All fathers are welcome, regardless of your ethnic group, background, and or culture. Mi amigos, bienvenidos. Aquí, ¿cómo te sientes? Hoy. Gracias. Okay, fathers, we're here for another live stream. And today, Father, I want to talk about the foster care system is broken in the United States of America. Now, you may be asking yourselves, fathers, hey, if I'm in my daughter's life, why would I be talking about the foster care system? Well, the reason I want to discuss the foster care system is I don't expect a lot of fathers to end up having their daughters end up in the foster care system, but you may know someone who has children that are there or have been there. I'm a former state of Colorado juvenile probation officer. I worked in the criminal justice system for 20 years and had a lot of my female clients that were placed in foster care in group homes. And a lot of these little girls caught pure hell. And being away from their families, being away from their parents, it wasn't a good experience for them. Most of the young ladies that I supervised, the majority of them had been sexually assaulted at some point prior to me getting them on probation. It was a very, very sad situation, how they ended up in the criminal justice system. Many of them ended up in the criminal justice system because of family court. Now, there's two different court systems. When it comes to juveniles, you have the family court system, and then you have the juvenile system. The difference between the two, family court system is dealing with parents that are going through a divorce and they have children that are going to be probably more than likely spending time between two different households. And a lot of those children end up in the criminal justice system because of the issues that they have to deal with their parents, going back and forth, and just not feeling loved a lot of times. And with little girls, a lot of little girls take things more personal. And, they end up getting in trouble for a variety of reasons. They end up in the criminal justice system, juvenile justice system. So many of them end up running away. 90 to 95% of the young girls that I supervised on juvenile probation were runaway little girls. And it was just a bad situation. Most of them didn't have their fathers in their lives, or if their fathers were in their lives, it was a situation where the fathers weren't consistently present for these baby girls. So a lot of them ended up going to group homes or being placed in foster care prior to me getting them on probation. Then I had a lot of little girls that I supervised that ended up in group homes once I got them on probation because of the situations they had to deal with their parents being divorced when they were young children. So it just kind of escalated, got out of control. So that's one of the reasons I want to talk about the foster care system. I didn't have a good experience as a criminal justice professional and with these group homes and these foster care homes. I saw a lot of not so good things happen with children. And as a probation officer, I had to really, really advocate for these kids. And I just saw how the criminal justice system fails a lot of these children. It just really, really does. Under the umbrella of the criminal justice system, you have all these different agencies. All these children that are placed outside of their home, they all have caseworkers that are at the county level. They're assigned through the Department of Human Services, aka Social Services, aka Child Protection Services, and they all have caseworkers. They're going to therapy, they're having to do this, they're having to do that. It's just a mess for most of these children because they're jacked up. They're jacked up kids. And for the most part, a lot of their parents are jacked up. They could be addicted to drugs and alcohol or just have a lot of issues going on to where they're not able to parent their children. So these kids end up being taken away from their parents and are placed in group homes and foster care where so many of them get taken advantage of, and just a lot of bad things happen to these children. So I have some great videos that I want to share with you just to give you a perspective and understanding of why the child, why not group homes, why foster care in the United States has failed many, many children. There are always going to be success stories. There are going to always be good foster care placements, but there's a lot of failure as well. And I saw it more often in the criminal justice system when I had these little girls that were placed outside their home. They just didn't do well because most of these little girls that ended up in group homes and foster care didn't have guidance from their fathers. And of course, when the parent that stayed, they end up getting overwhelmed, which is the mother the majority of the time, and they get blamed for everything. So, I'm just not one of them men. I don't believe in blaming women. Being exposed the way I was exposed, seeing what I had to see, and dealing with what I had to deal with in family court, spent a lot of years in family court seeing kids get screwed over. Spent a lot of years in juvenile court seeing kids get screwed over. So I'm very hard on fathers. Very, very hard on fathers, because I know a lot of fathers are bullshit. And I know a lot of fathers have put their children and put their kids, their daughters, in situations to where their children and they're fending for themselves. And little girls will do whatever they have to do to survive. And when I talk about sexual assault, that's what it is for most of them. They've been taken advantage of by grown-ass men. And so many adults have failed these baby girls. It's a sad situation, fathers. So for those fathers that are in their daughters' lives, I commend you. I encourage you to always be a part of your daughter's life. Always be a part of their success, birth to 18 years of age. Because trust me, predators are waiting for them. If they're ever removed from your house, you no longer have a safe fathers. And then the criminal justice system is going to do what it does. Okay? And it's not good for these baby girls. Okay, fathers, let's get started with these videos. And I'm hoping to bring something to you fathers today and have you have a different understanding of what could happen if your daughter is ever placed outside the home in a group home or sent to foster care. Falls on the fathers. I don't believe in blaming the mothers. I do not believe in blaming the mothers. This falls 100% on the fathers. We provide protection and safety. And when that protection and safety is not available to our children, to our baby girls, mothers are nurturers. Okay? They're going to catch hell. They just are. So I don't believe in pointing the finger at the mothers and blaming the mothers for how our daughters end up and turn up and end up being in this world. It's a father's responsibility to always provide protection and safety. That's what was given to us. And if we fail them and they fail themselves, fathers, it's 100% on us. Okay, fathers, let's take a look at these first few videos.
Everybody looks forward to their 21st birthday, but in my case, I'm old enough to not have anywhere to live. I'm old enough to be subjected to homelessness.
Christina Abraham is a child of the foster care system. Born in Harlem, she's lived in New York City her entire life. Her 21st birthday looms like a day of reckoning. Over a period of 5 months, we visited with Christina repeatedly, learning about her life in foster care as she prepared to age out of it.
Did any of your foster parents treat you like you were their actual child?
No.
Not one?
Nope. The best experience I've had with foster parent is a foster parent who did nothing. I'd rather you do nothing than actively make my life harder.
How did that change you? Living with people who weren't caring for you, feeling that sense of instability all the time.
It made me feel terrible. It made me feel like I didn't matter. I struggled with my mental health. I struggled with depression. I was diagnosed with depression at 10 years old. And to feel like, I could die tomorrow and nobody would know. Nobody cares about me. And that is a terrible feeling, to feel like you're in a world full of billions of people and your life does not matter to anybody. it made me feel like, you know what, let me please people so that I can have somewhere to stay. Because in foster care, you're working on eggshells. If your foster parent doesn't like you, they can just say, hey, leave my house. But you can't say, hey, I don't really like that foster parent, or hey, can I get another one? You don't have that privilege.
Christina doesn't know if the group home will let her stay past her 21st birthday, when in New York, like in most states, foster youth are supposed to leave the system. Last year in New York City, more than 500 young adults aged out. She hasn't found an apartment she can afford.
What possibilities are you looking at right now?
I'm looking at nothing, really. Even though I want everything, I'm looking at nothing. I know these streets like the back of my hand.
Christina wants to return to Harlem, steeped in rich Black history despite the pain she endured here.
This is where it all started.
It's where she entered foster care after an abusive childhood. Christina became a permanent ward of the state at 8. She remembers her mom leaving her alone here. Her mother says officials separated her from Christina and she was not allowed to say goodbye.
You're just a little person. Did you understand what was happening?
Unfortunately, I did, because this had been the second time now. And to know that for the second time in less than 10 years, my life would be like this. Yeah, it was just something I'll never forget.
And everything was different after that point.
I have never known freedom from the system since that day.
Christina spends most of her free time doing this, messaging landlords, asking if they'll take a rental voucher she received from the city. The market is competitive under normal circumstances. The average rental price of a studio apartment in New York City is upwards of $2,700. And she suspects landlords see her as a bruised apple at the bottom of the bunch.
And between calling and emailing, like I'll email so many people.
See all the addresses.
So many addresses. Hello, I would like to move as soon as possible. Hello, I would like to move as soon as possible. Hello, I would like to move as soon as possible. Hello, I would like to. They never got back to me, as you can see.
After all that work, empty-handed.
Hours. It takes hours a day. Hours a day, every single day.
21 comes and goes without a party. Christina spends the night sleeping in a relative's abandoned apartment with no electricity, anything to avoid the group home. She finds a studio apartment in Harlem, but it fails inspection 3 times. 7 weeks have now passed since her birthday.
We were in a situation where my voucher could potentially expire. I would lose the lease on my apartment.
But meeting with us that day, things are starting to look up. She tells us she might soon be able to move into the new studio.
Today we are going to see the apartment I should be moving into in the next 10 days. That's what we're gonna do.
What do you think is going to be running through your mind when you walk through the door?
Like, does it feel like home? Whatever that means, I guess. But I'm excited. Like, do my outlets work? Is
Check for the toilet flushes.
Toilet flushes, outlets work. Do I have good service in there? Like, I mean, even if I didn't, I'm still gonna move in, but whatever.
Okay. Top floor, we have a nice little island dishwasher. And this is the bathroom. Me.
How are you feeling, though? I mean, on the one hand, cause for celebration, but you've also had these moments where you thought everything was set and something fell through.
Honestly, I feel less happy than I should feel, because I am reserved, because I know that things can be set in stone and then the rug can be pulled under you at the last moment.
Christina says the city foster agency failed to submit her housing paperwork in time. She says in part because she's had 6 different overwhelmed caseworkers in the span of a year. She has to ask the group home to let her stay longer again. We catch up on a video call.
What's it like to still be there?
Disappointing. Honestly, but extremely disappointing. I kind of had like a breakdown in a sense to have that point be consistently pushed back. It messed with me because I felt like, am I ever gonna get this apartment?
Are you kind of angry?
I am. I'm very angry because I feel like the worst part about this whole system and my situation is that I am a human life that hangs in the balance. What people do directly impacts what I can do. I can't sleep anywhere. I can't go anywhere I want to go, sleep anywhere I want to go. I can't put my head down in my own place. One camera.
Public areas in the home are under constant surveillance. Christina says girls get into physical fights every week. She can't open a window and breathe fresh air without an alarm going off.
What? Oh yeah, here we go.
We reached out to New York City's Administration for Children's Services, or ACS. In a statement, they said youth reception centers have a variety of safety measures in place to protect those living inside the facility. Every day, Christina hangs a curtain in front of her bedroom door for privacy.
If you lift it up, there's a window. And so anybody who walks by can look inside of your room at any time. These are some of my suitcases I use to keep clothes in. And I always keep 1,000 bottles of water. I know it looks crazy, but on the weekends, we run out of water and sometimes food.
They just let water and food run out?
Only supervisors have access to the fridge, and supervisors aren't in on the weekends, and neither is the chef. So on the weekends, we go hungry.
ACS told NBC News, we expect youth reception centers to serve food of good quality and sufficient quantity, and that refrigerators should not be locked, and youth should not need a supervisor to access food.
When you first moved in there, what was going through your mind?
I was kind of distraught that I ended up here because my whole foster care, I guess, life or career, you can say, I tried my best not to end up in group homes, not to end up in kind of things that I saw as like pits of despair. Once you get here, it's kind of like you're stuck here, and then you kind of go through the shuffle of between this group home and this group home, between this group home and this group home, between this group home and this group home. Somebody pulled the fire alarm.
Christina tells us someone has just pulled the fire alarm, forcing everyone to evacuate.
I prefer not to be here, like at all. But if I am here, then I definitely do stay in my room. I'm like one of those persons that I'm just gonna stay in my room, because outside of my room, crazy things happen. I understand the need for the metal detectors. I understand the need to follow people with every room they go into. I understand the need for having to request for a real fork or a knife or a blender or anything sharp or a hot comb or like hairspray. Like, I understand that. But it's like, then again, it's like, it's crazy. Because like at the end of the day, I'm not
Dehumanizing.
it very. It's every single day. It's every single day that is dehumanizing. There's not a day, as soon as I walk into the place, I already feel less than.
Do you think you're ready for this?
I know I have to be. I know that I'm more capable than most because I've been conditioned to the situation.
We're listening to say, tell us what it is you want.
Overseeing the city's foster care youth is Jess Danhauser, Commissioner of the Administration for Children's Services. He can't comment on specific cases, but did address broader criticisms.
We've seen some of the conditions of the group homes.
In a place that's not safe or secure. My whole goal as commissioner is to make this system more humane.
That goal includes those leaving the system like Christina.
We're also providing supports through coaches. We all thrive through interdependence, so we're building out this extra support through coaches all the way until 26 years old.
Why are we seeing so many Black and Latino kids caught up in the system and stuck in it until this ending point?
It goes to the very beginning. We know that we get more reports for young people of color, for families of color. We have a project that we are working on to make sure that who we're investigating really reflects where there's concern, is not biased. If someone needs support and it comes to our attention, we go out with a supportive lens. It is not an investigation.
His team is looking for new ways to provide financial support to foster youth.
Are the reasons provided to these young people, do they match the reality of a New York that has a competitive housing situation, costs are rising? If you're a 21-year-old aging out of the system, how are you realistically actually getting on your feet?
Yeah, I think there's a couple ways. One is we are reorienting our college program so that where young people want to go to college, the resources will follow them. For young people who are moving into housing, thankfully, the city has made a commitment to a voucher program here that young people have access to, and is at market rates.
2.5 months after turning 21, Christina finally leaves the group home for good. She had the keys to the Harlem unit, put all her possessions into trash bags, and left with about $150 to her name. This was supposed to be her big leap, her first
I'm feeling better too.
What's going on?
Right now, I'm trying to get furniture for my apartment. I have no bed.
To help get her on her feet, a charity called Hearts to Homes gives Christina supplies, linens, dish soap, a cutlery set.
These can be expensive. I mean,
Yes.
Reviews Christina's $2,344.
We think of this as a virtual housewarming. So we want to give the young people the same kinds of things that we would give our own children if we were helping them set up an apartment. In this case, we're trying to give them the dignity of choice, right? They haven't had a lot of choice when they were in foster care about anything, really. And now that they're going to be independent for the first time, what you want, whatever it is that you need.
How great is this need?
And most meals before her paycheck on September 7th.
Are you missing meals?
Yes. Yes, I am. I am most times not having breakfast.
Are you sleeping okay?
Some days. Some days. Sometimes I'm excited to start my job, so I wake up with a smile on my face, albeit off the floor, but still. Other days, I'm tired.
She's also a survivor and determined. 99 days after she turned 21, Christina invites us to see the very first home she could call her own.
Hi.
Hey.
This is your place.
Yes.
It happened.
It did.
No more fears that she might be left homeless, no more nights tossing and turning on the floor. A new bed and food in the fridge feel like a triumph.
How long have you been waiting for this moment?
The short version, maybe 6 months. The long version, 21 years.
When you look out at this version of New York and you're in your personal space, what's the message you receive?
Harlem.
Born again in the same neighborhood, this time with the chance to chart her own path. Antonia Hilton, NBC News, New York.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.
Okay, fathers, I apologize. I'm having technical issues with the internet. It's going in and out. So I'm going to do my best to get through this live stream. We still have about 4 more videos I want to share with you, but just want to apologize to you. My internet is acting foolish this morning, and that's just how technology works. It is what it is, and I have some great internet, but for whatever reason, it's acting a fool. So we will continue on with the next video, fathers.
There are currently more than There are currently more than 400,000 children in foster care in the U.S. And while the pandemic has made life even more difficult for these vulnerable kids, many say the foster care system itself has been putting them at risk for decades. Special correspondent Charlene Hunter-Gault sat down with one former foster child who's now on a mission to fix the system by helping families stay together in the first place. It's part of our Race Matters series and Charlene's ongoing reporting on racism in America.
Ready for your popsicle?
Meet 61-year-old Valencia Polk.
Hold it right here.
Her 6 grandchildren came to live with her after Child Protective Services removed the children from their parents due to neglect allegations. It was a lot to take on, but the grandmother never thought twice. Then, after a few months and without warning, all 6 of the children were taken from her and put in a foster home. She was never given a specific reason.
They told me, we're going to take the children. I cried, of course, they're my kids. Why are you going to take the kids? We don't think you can handle it. When they took them, they were sitting in the floor doing their homework, and they came and got them. Screaming and crying, please, please, help me, help me, help me. And then till I had to leave, I said, I got to go back in the house because I just felt like I was going to fall on the ground.
Polk says the children were physically and verbally abused in foster care, adding they were dirty during supervised visits. The trauma led each of the children to start shutting down in different ways. 8-year-old BJ stopped doing his schoolwork.
He told me out of his own mouth, he said, I don't want to do better until I go home. That's what he told me. So that's what I'm dealing with. The 3-year-old that's in there, the boy wouldn't say nothing. They thought he was deaf and dumb. They were teaching him sign language. I told him, I said, he's not deaf and dumb. You broke him.
Then, just as suddenly as they were taken away, 3 of the children were given back to Polk, again without explanation. All this is avoidable trauma caused by a broken system, according to Sixto Council. It's cases like this one that led the 29-year-old former foster child to start a nonprofit called Think of Us. It collects these kinds of stories, brings them to Washington, and advocates for change that would help families like the Polks stay together. On this night, Council visited the Polks with Valerie Jackson of Monarch Family Services, the child placing agency helping Polk obtain permanent guardianship.
This is how we find out, is by talking to real human beings. Like, we have to hear from all sides.
I met Sixto Council near the Polk home in Houston, Texas, to hear more about his ideas on what needs to change, ideas fueled equally by his own traumatic childhood.
Just how typical is what we've just seen?
This is a story that we see over and over and over. And all the time, we see these small barriers as like a deposit for an apartment or the need for more food being the barrier that actually blocks families from staying together, or these technicalities that a family might need to be licensed to take care of their children, their relatives.
Yeah, but even in your own life, I mean, you're now 29, and you had this experience, like, in a way, like this family, since you were 11 months old. What was that like?
Unfortunately, my mother couldn't take care of us because of her drug addiction. And by the age of 9, I was adopted, and it was a pretty abusive and racist adoption.
What do you mean?
I was placed with a Puerto Rican white-looking woman who, you know, while the
I apologize, fathers. My internet is going in and out. So let's see here.
And that was the moment where I realized I had to tell me because I was Black, I would have to go to a
Once again, fathers, I apologize. I'm trying to get this internet in order.
their relatives.
Yeah. But even in your own life, I mean, you're now 29, and you've had this experience, like, in a way, like this family, since you were 11 months old. What was that like?
Unfortunately, my mother couldn't take care of us because of her drug addiction. And by the age of 9, I was adopted, and it was a pretty abusive and racist adoption.
What do you mean?
I was placed with a Puerto Rican white looking woman who, while the light skinned children got to go to a private school, she told me because I was Black, I would have to go to a public school. And I would experience different types of abuses based on who I was. And so by 13, found myself couch surfing and trying to prove to the agency what was going on. But it was this tall, Black looking kid against this white, short looking Puerto Rican woman. And I wasn't believed for a very long time until I started to record the abuse.
And you came up with solution by watching what is one of my favorite shows, Law and Order.
Yeah, so it was one day I was watching Law and Order, and that was the moment where I realized I had to find evidence. I had to build evidence. So after that, I was able to be put back into foster care.
What was it like in those foster homes?
It was a roller coaster. So fostering is a calling, and some people are called to do the work. And some people, really see the mutual benefit of being able to survive leveraging that stipend that they get from the government.
It was only after he aged out of the system at 23 that counsel discovered he had family members less than 60 miles away who would have taken him in. But he says they were never contacted.
We see this still happening today. But what is encouraging is that we're also seeing a lot of movement around making it better. There have been laws that have been passed in the last 3 years that people are really working hard to change this.
How much of it do you think is about race? Does it happen to all children, regardless of color, or is there a disproportionate impact if you're a person of color?
So what we know right now is that 53% of all Black families will experience a child abuse investigation. 10% of all Black children will experience foster care. That is twice the rate of white children. And so what we see is an over surveillance of child welfare in communities that are poor. I think when you think of foster care, you think of child welfare, you think of folks who have probably been physically abused, sexually abused, emotionally abused, but 64% of the cases actually have to do with neglect issues that are coming from poverty, right? The lights, water are not running, not enough food. So we created a system that was supposed to be about protecting children from abusers. But what we really have is the majority of the children in foster care are experiencing high poverty issues.
So how did you get involved in this program that you're working with now?
So I started Think of Us with the premise that we should be fixing the system, re-architecting it in a way that we address the core problems that are around it. And so I truly envision that right now we can move from being a system that is mainly focused on placing children with strangers, right? Foster parents that they don't know, that we can move that to a system that supports grandma, uncle, cousins, people that the children already know and that are already related to, and figure out how do we support them in taking them in. Right now, only 33% of children are actually placed with a relative.
Where are the rest of them? In group homes?
We see that they're in foster homes, in group homes, and the difference that we're also seeing here is that when they are placed with a relative, that states are not supporting those families the same way that they would support a foster parent. On average, a foster parent gets about $800 in reimbursement a month for a child. But for many states, they provide no type of support or very little support to an actual grandparent or aunt and uncle who's taking them in.
I've seen you say that despite all of the division that we see politically these days, you've got some cooperation between the parties on this.
One of the things that I'm so encouraged by on child welfare particularly is that it is a bipartisan issue. But I think we need to go even further, right? We have a lot of agreement around foster care, but sometimes we think differently about kinship care. The idea when grandma takes in her grandchildren that she should just do that. And we need to shift our thinking to say, no, we should support grandma and being able to make sure that grandma has all the tools and resources that we would give a foster parent to keep that family together.
So what keeps you going? What makes you hopeful? You've used that word. So what is it?
I'm very hopeful because at the basis of what's happening right now, the money's changing in child welfare, what can be financed, the rules are changing in child welfare. But what I really want people to know is that this is an opportunity for us to ensure that children and young people get families and that we grow up with families and that every child should be able to feel someone who loves them past a contractual agreement. And this is the opportunity where we get to do that.
And you're hopeful that we can do this?
I'm confident that we can do this.
Well, Sixto Cancel, you make me hopeful just listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, fathers. So, as a former criminal justice professional, 20 years of experience working directly in the criminal justice system, as a former state of Colorado juvenile probation officer. What that young man is talking about, I'm going to go a little bit deeper because he's 100% on point. Now, the county where I was a probation officer at for almost 10 years, Jefferson County, Colorado, 1st Judicial District, Jefferson County. It's located in Golden, Colorado. Let me tell you, $1 million homes, median income's very high. And these were all white kids that I was dealing with. One of the conditions I had of going out to Jefferson County was that they were going to make sure that every child of color that ended up on probation, because I was the first Black probation officer hired in this county. And I was the only probation officer, male probation officer of color in that department of 80 probation officers. I was the only Black male, right? So that was my conditions of going out to Jefferson County to become a probation officer. I wanted every child of color, which I did get. So with that being said, I was dealing with a lot of poor white kids, right? And what this young man is talking about, it's real interesting. What used to piss me off the most is when these kids are placed in group homes. I'm thinking to myself, okay, how deep did social services go to get an extended family member, an uncle and aunt, a sister or brother, someone within the immediate family? Because what happens is, and this is what I call the pimp hole of the criminal justice system. It's a pimp hole system, right? And the reason I call it a pimp hole system is because we are not going to provide those same services for extended family members. That makes absolutely no sense. So the criminal justice system has no problem going beyond keeping children separated from their extended family instead of keeping it intact. That's what pisses me off. And what that young man is talking about, provide those same wraparound services directly with an extended family member and watch these children thrive, because that's who they're familiar with. They're familiar with their aunts and their uncles and their extended family members. I met very few children in Jefferson County, Colorado, that were placed outside in a group home or foster care that didn't have a family member that tried to get them. It's crazy. And this is why the foster care system is broken. Because with these foster care, what's interesting when you're talking about payment, anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 per kid, depending on what county you live in, it's a lot of money. You got about 8 kids. Think about how much income that is a month. None of these foster parents are responsible for purchasing their clothing or any of their hygiene products. They're not required to do any of that. The only thing they're required to do is provide a bed and where they get to lay their head. Yes, they do take them back and forth to the doctor's appointment what I had to deal with, I'm telling you, it was crazy, absolutely insane. So him having a nonprofit and doing what he's doing, I commend that. But the criminal justice system can be doing a lot more. Instead of separating these kids from extended family members, they should be placing them with extended family members. I'm just not down with children being placed with strangers. I'm not down with that at all because I saw too many things. These kids got screwed by the criminal justice system by not being placed with a family member. Think about it. The same services that group homes and foster care offer kids can be done directly with an extended family member. The wraparound services that the government provides, why not provide that to an extended family member? They're part of the village. It takes a village to raise these babies. It does. Okay, fathers, we got 3 more videos. Like I said, I apologize. My internet is acting crazy this morning. I don't know what's going on with it, but it's technology. We're going to get through this. I got 3 more videos, fathers, and then we'll wrap up this live stream. Okay, let's get to the next video. These next 2 videos are going to be talking about foster care placements where kids have been taken advantage of and been abused. And I just want you to pay attention and see for yourself, fathers, what happens to children that are placed in foster care. A lot of them.
Adopted, abused, and abandoned. 7 kids placed in the care of Michelle Hobson, who became known as YouTube Mom after her 2019 arrest. The horrors Hobson was accused of shocking not only our state, but the country. And now ABC 15's Zach Crenshaw has uncovered the state was told repeatedly about the abuse and neglect years before her arrest.
For nearly a decade, at least 7 kids the Arizona Department of Child Safety was charged with protecting said they were starved, beaten, burned, pepper sprayed, and pulled from school. We didn't get a single record from DCS, but we got enough from Maricopa police reports, going over hundreds of pages and photos, as well as hours of body camera footage that reveal DCS
Okay, fathers, I'm trying to, it's technical issues, I'll tell you. Always something with the internet.
failed to remove the kids, despite nearly a dozen detailed children who spent years wondering, will help ever come?
Doesn't let us do anything at all. She doesn't even let us go play outside.
But on a rare trip to the dentist to fix rotting teeth, one of Michelle Hobson's adopted kids confided in an older biological daughter about the alleged abuse behind locked doors.
She starved me for 5 days straight. I threw up one day because of it. She didn't care. She still did not feed me.
The 7 kids, ranging from 2 years old to 13, told police they were routinely beaten.
She used her phone to pound on my head. His stomach is literally covered in bruises. She spits in people's faces.
The kids told police Michelle took pleasure in burning them with a lighter, freezing them in ice baths, and even using pepper spray.
She makes us sit with the pepper spray on us for a whole entire day straight. She emptied 2 bottles on me.
Those canisters eventually found in the mess of the home next to diapers.
If we pee ourselves, she doesn't let us have water for at least a whole entire day straight.
This is as bad of a case without any fatality as I can remember ever reviewing.
Pinal County Attorney Ken Folkmer.
I mean, there was violence perpetuated on the genitals of small children. They were locked in a room. They were deprived of food. And it was all done if they didn't perform these little skits and these little videos.
Those little videos were viewed hundreds of millions of times on Michelle's lucrative YouTube channel, Fantastic Adventures.
She was making, I think the last few months, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month.
The videos were filmed and edited by Michelle's older biological sons. The family even had a green room for special effects and Hobson's torture.
She makes us sleep in a green closet.
How many other people sleep in there?
3 other kids that sleep only in pull-ups. And she has a lock on it, so we can't get out to have to pee.
We go to bed, and the next morning, she won't let us out. Like, we asked her, and she says no.
If she was in a bad mood, Michelle would reportedly remove the light bulbs. And the kids, they'd be locked in the dark, starving in dirty diapers for days.
When trauma happens to a child, it's severe and it's long lasting.
Robert Pastor is a Valley attorney who specializes in abuse.
Because of what I do, some of the cases I've handled, I'm not surprised.
One room in the house was immaculate, likely for filming. The rest, filthy. While YouTube viewers were oblivious to the horrors off camera, Arizona's Department of Child Safety was not.
It was a collective failure of the system.
While their goal is to protect children, they seem to fail in that effort too frequently.
And Zach's investigation not done yet. When we come back, how DCS failed to save the children, despite being told about the abuse more than 10 times. Plus, why 2 Maricopa police officers were disciplined in connection with all of this.
Just moments ago, we told you about the horrors behind closed doors surrounding the so-called YouTube mom. Millions of viewers and neighbors had no idea it was happening, but DCS did know. Here's Zach Crenshaw with more of his investigation.
Not only did DCS fail to catch the abuse during their monthly visits when Michelle was fostering 14 kids over a decade, some until 2019, but the state agency was alerted over and over about visible signs of neglect and abuse. In this police investigation, detectives detailed the 11 times between 2011 and 2019 that teachers, siblings, even the kids themselves told DCS they needed help. 11 times the kids were left with Michelle. The first documented April 2011. A babysitter told DCS the kids yell and cry after Michelle will lock them in a bedroom. DCS found the details unsubstantiated. 2 years later, May 2013, one child told her teacher, Michelle makes her stand in the corner when she gets home from school until she has to beg. Finding unsubstantiated. A week later, another report from the school outlining 3 years of general neglect. The adopted daughter with mild intellectual defects told her inquiring teacher Michelle took her toothbrush, which is why there was gunk all over her teeth and gums. The teacher told the agency Michelle was rarely involved, but had a fear of harm and retaliation due to the report. That fear realized 3 days later, when, after a CPS visit to the home, Michelle contacted the school and withdrew the girl. Records reveal Michelle gloated to the teacher, saying, quote, the caseworker laughed at the allegation and did not take it seriously. Findings unsubstantiated.
Do you go to school?
Nope. I'm homeschooled, but I don't even do school homework at home or anything.
Back to the DCS reports. And a year later, August 2014, a Gilbert daycare tells DCS Michelle's foster kids are unbathed, covered in feces, and have infected blisters and rashes all over. Despite all the details, the findings, once again, unsubstantiated. 9 months later, April 2015, a foster child says that 2 years ago, Michelle, quote, threw a can of food at her head and it left a scar. Was the scar ever looked at? We don't know, but the findings You guessed it, unsubstantiated. 3 months later, July 2015, DCS is told that one of Michelle's girls has serious bruising, a horrible rash, and another daughter appears to be starving. Again, nothing was done, unsubstantiated. The most egregious failure, though, happened December 2017. A boy ran from Michelle's Maricopa house naked to avoid another beating. Michelle took a risk and called 911. Officers found the child shivering in a backyard. He begged them not to take him home, saying, "I'm being starved," and pepper sprayed. Officer Michael Takagi documented the kid's disclosures, writing, quote, "She keeps them out of school so officials don't see bruises or hits them in areas that are not visible." Then he called DCS. 6 days later, a DCS worker finally did a welfare check. Reports show she was told ahead of time, quote, "Mother is reported to know CPS and will brief the children and tell them she will hurt them if they say anything." How, after all of those details, Michelle managed to keep the kids is a mystery. But her older biological daughters told officers this in 2019.
Every time it happens, they give her a heads up. They tell her what's happening because she's a part of the foster care system. They interviewed the kids right in front of her, right in front of my mother.
DCS yet again found that abuse unsubstantiated, and they refused to give us any records, even after Hobson died due to health issues in late 2019.
They want to keep this information under wraps.
In hindsight, there was some mistakes.
Maricopa PD also failed on multiple accounts. Officer Takagi never recategorized the juvenile problem to criminal abuse, so detectives were never flagged to investigate. His lieutenant, Mary Turner, also failed to review the report and catch his mistake. 2 years later, a supervisor would write, "The children were subject to more abuse because of their failures." In fact, Michelle retaliated. The kids told detectives in 2019 that after that runaway incident, Mom got mad. She put us in that room for a really long time. I think it lasted more than a day. So we got scared to tell again, because that was after the cops came once. For all their mistakes, Lieutenant Turner and Officer Takagi were suspended without pay for 10 hours, a single shift.
Does that seem like appropriate punishment to you, given how many more months the kids suffered?
Unfortunately, when we make mistakes as police, the stakes are high. And we can't make that hurt go away. We have to own that and move on.
They shirked their responsibility, and sadly, these children had to live in this sort of torturous environment for far too long.
I spanked the child, no crime in the house? No.
It's important to acknowledge the kids told police Hobson was a manipulator.
Ms. Hobson specifically chose children that had significant mental health issues, knowing full well that those with significant mental health issues are going to be less believable.
You're not telling me what was said. No, I'm not going to tell you because there's an investigation.
Michelle would show DCS investigators the stocked fridge and packed pantry, but the kids say they were being starved, still fearful to eat even after officers arrived in 2019.
We're going to protect you. Is there anything in here that you want to eat right now while we're waiting? Is seriously anything? Look, you got some chips. No, she's not. No, she's not. No, she's not. You're not going to talk to Mom right now.
The children also said Michelle forced them to lie.
Last time CPS and cops came, I wanted to tell them the truth, but they wouldn't let. My mom told me to say all lies, and if I didn't say lies, she threatened me and said she was going to kill me.
Even with those lies, though, Pastor says DCS should have gotten to the truth.
The idea that, children lied and therefore we couldn't have known, well, that's contrary to everything that they're trained to do, which is to look at the totality of the circumstances and you begin to put together and you say, hey, there's something going on here. We need to look more closely.
But a closer look never happened.
As a result, we had a number of young children that suffered potentially irreparable harm.
It's harm that will last a lifetime.
The court said this is a person that you can trust, and they were violated so horribly.
Many I've spoken with say Arizona's Department of Child Safety needs massive changes to better protect kids.
Because there weren't adequate resources, they cut corners or they made judgment calls, and as a result, these children got harmed.
We probably report to DCS, I would say, at least 5 times a day, and then you magnify that across the state.
The Arizona legislature, year in and year out, has not given these caseworkers the resources, the training, the payment and salary they need to make sure children are safe.
DCS denied all of my records requests, citing confidentiality, even though Hobson is dead and the children are anonymous.
We deserve to know, why are so many children in the DCS system being hurt?
DCS Director Mike Faust also declined our multiple requests for an interview.
You can't have accountability unless you have transparency. And DCS is an organization that we know one thing. They do not like this type of information finding its way into the public domain.
Do you think any of the kids should live there?
No, I think they're not safe there.
The older sister called this cell phone video a, quote, last-ditch effort to save her siblings.
I want to get them out of there, and I don't want CBS to play their games.
I want all my other sisters and brothers to be in a safe home.
I love you, and I don't even know you.
I love you too, because you're saving me from this house.
I know, baby.
But the larger question remains.
Will we ever know how DCS handled this internally?
I hope so. I sincerely hope so, because it's not just these kids, it's all the other kids who are still in DCS care.
It's been 2 years now since Hobson was arrested. 2 years for DCS to reflect on all of those unsubstantiated reports, those missed opportunities to save the children sooner. Not only did the agency deny all of our interview and public records requests, they declined to answer if any changes have been made or any employees held accountable. You can read their full statement, as well as more exclusive details, on our website. Zach Crenshaw, ABC 15, Arizona.
Even though DCS would not comment on this story, we plan to ask the governor and lawmakers what they make of the state agency repeatedly failing to remove the kids. We'll have much more on this story in the coming week. Five investigates with just a horrific case of abuse that's been kept hidden for years by the state and in courts.
The abuse, all involving a single foster home in Massachusetts and at least 6 children. Reporter Kathy Kern and producer Kevin Rothstein have worked more than a year to bring this story to light. Kathy.
And Ed and Maria, we've done numerous stories about the failures of the state's foster care system. This is another disturbing case. A year and a half ago, a young man reached out to me with a horrifying story of the abuse he, his brother, and other children suffered in a state-licensed foster home.
I'm not going to call what we went through abuse. I call what we went through torture.
Years of horrific abuse inside this well-kept central Massachusetts home felt like torture to the young foster children who once lived there. What happened here was all a secret for more than a decade. The details sealed away in court documents and buried in state reports, police records, and inside the victims until now.
Everything's coming to light.
You want to talk to us about all the abuse? Get out of here! You have anything to say for yourself?
I don't know what you're talking about.
They were innocent kids.
They took everything from us.
John Williams was just 7 years old. His brother Nathan only 3 when they were placed in this licensed foster home by the Department of Social Services, now known as the Department of Children and Families. They're coming forward as adults and working with 5 investigates to expose the failures of the system that robbed them of the loving childhoods they so desperately needed.
You look back at this, how would you describe your childhood?
But I was never really a kid. I don't know what it's like to be a kid. I'll never know what it's like to be a kid.
Records we obtained show John and Nathan telling police, social workers, and others of the former foster mother who was a registered nurse, her live-in boyfriend in the early 2000s. Police reports detail the horror. The boys telling officers they were beaten while naked with a pillow over their heads to stop them from screaming. Court records show Nathan food then force-fed and sometimes locked in a room or put in dog crates for hours.
I'll never forget when all the times that I was hog-tied, tied up in a diaper, thrown in a dog cage. After school was punishment. Jumping jacks naked, both me and my brother together, standing with books, held out. I slept on plywood. There was a bucket for me to go to the bathroom.
John and Nathan were just 2 of the 6 children placed in that foster home by the state. We've connected with them all, and as adults, they're still haunted by the abuse. Some struggle with mental health issues, substance abuse issues, and 2 have even done time behind bars.
I honestly felt like I was going to die.
Nathan Williams aged out of the foster care system, ended up homeless, and raped a teenage girl in 2013. He's 25 years old and behind bars at MCI Norfolk. He takes responsibility for his crime, but says the abuse he suffered in foster care is partially to blame.
It's hard to look at myself sometimes and know what I've done, and I'm sorry for what I've done, truly. And I try to better myself every day because of that.
He told us the trauma from what happened to him as a child destroyed him.
He would throw us outside in the middle of winter. I'd be naked. And I remember he had this big detergent bottle that he filled with water. And he put it outside with me while I'm out there shivering naked. And he'd bring me inside and put me in the tub full of ice cubes and make me sit there. And if I moved, then he'd beat me, and then he'd sit there and he'd laugh as he'd pour the detergent bottle on my head.
Take it with a glove and rub it into Nathan's face.
In this police report, John said his foster mother's boyfriend smeared dog feces on his brother when Nathan didn't clean up after the family's dogs. Psychiatric records say Nathan was even forced to drink his own urine. The boys said they were both routinely beaten with the metal buckle of a dog leash and more.
I remember him hitting my brother so hard. My brother, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. How? My brother looked dead in the face.
They're heartless individuals. It wasn't just beating. He basically treated me like a slave.
In the end, it wasn't a teacher, police, or a social worker who stopped the abuse. It was John who, at the age of 12, got off the school bus and kept going, running away from home through the woods to a friend's house and telling all to police. That led to a dozen criminal counts of assault and child endangerment against his foster mother and her live-in boyfriend.
The children were never allowed to testify.
That's because the prosecutor spoke with the DSS attorney and the social worker and says that they would rather not have the children testify and that the children are in foster homes.
So their voices were never heard, the case never went to trial, and the couple struck this deal with the Worcester County District Attorney.
As long as they completed probation with no issues, they stayed away from the children, and that the foster mother signed over all the rights to the children, then all of these charges would be dismissed.
What's gone through my mind as I'm a young man is how disgusting this whole situation was. Sickening. It's sickening.
And even after John escaped the home and reported the abuse to police, documents show it was several months before DCF removed the remaining foster children from that home. We didn't identify the abusers at the center of this case because they were never convicted or criminally charged for most of the allegations. New at 7 tonight, the warning signs of abuse in that home that were missed or overlooked again and again. Kathy Carden, 5 Investigates.
Powerful report, Kathy. Thank you. And as Kathy said at the very beginning, this story started with a tip. If you think you have a story for 5 Investigates, call our tip line. It's 781-235-TIPS. TIPS is 8477 on the phone. So 781-285-8477. Or you can leave a message on the 5 Investigates Facebook page.
Okay, fathers. So I can only speak for the state of Colorado because that's where I worked in the criminal justice system. I can't speak for other states. But in the state of Colorado, as a social worker, caseworker, you have to have a master's degree. They're called MSWs, Masters of Social Work, at the county level. They're county employees working with state agencies, right? And you have to have an MSW. So if you go straight to college out of high school, by the time you graduate, you're 24 years of age. Most of the caseworkers are female. And the majority of the caseworkers I work with, they didn't have children. They weren't mothers. So that could become a problem. And as a society, we don't believe kids. You know, you have other adults telling you kids lie and they manipulate. We don't listen to children. We blame children for their imaginations. We blame children when they're victims, they're being victimized, and then they become adults and they become the victimizer. And then we blame these children that have been screwed over by the criminal justice system as adults. And then we have this cycle, right? Because what happens to these children in foster care is lifelong. You know, I don't know how many of them get their lives together, but their mental health, they're jacked up for the rest of their lives. They are, because of what happened to them. But we don't show any compassion or empathy. We're going to listen to adults and we're not going to believe children. That's what society does. You know, it's amazing to me. I remember working in the criminal justice system and hearing caseworkers say, well, you know, Ephraim, kids lie. And I would look at these caseworkers and tell them, kids don't lie. Adults are full of shit. And I can tell you, when I was a probation officer, none of my children were taken advantage of. Not one. Because I made damn sure I met with them on a constant basis. If they were placed outside of the home, in group homes or foster care, if there was anything ever reported to me, not only was I going to report it to the caseworker's direct supervisor, I was going straight to the court. I was going in the judge's chambers. I would have reported it to my direct supervisor over probation, and I would have walked right into the judge's chambers and told them what these kids are saying. Because I had access to judges. So I wasn't going to play this political game. Wasn't worried about my job and my career screwing over kids. That's not why I got into the profession. But this is what we're dealing with. Foster care system is, it's horrible. It's horrible. So, okay, fathers, we have one more video and then we're going to wrap up this live stream.
CDM in Focus is the original reporting. CDM in Focus is the original reporting you'll see only on CBS This Morning, exposing new information on issues that impact all of us. Today, we are focusing on the challenges facing child protective services workers. 5-year-old AJ Friend was found dead in Illinois in April, and his parents were charged with murder.
Afterward, we started looking into how something like this could allegedly happen despite previous interventions by police and child welfare workers. We discovered hundreds of American children known to CPS agencies die of maltreatment every year. CTM national correspondent Jerika Duncan set out to learn why. Jerika? What did you find out?
You know, this is why we do what we do as journalists, to really delve into important issues. We spent a day with a Child Protective Services caseworker in Outagamie County, Wisconsin. What we witnessed was disturbing, heartbreaking, and real. For the protection of the children's identities, this is a story about the challenges facing the men and women tasked with ensuring the safety of children across this country.
Relapse is my biggest concern.
Woman's job to determine whether the kids living here are in danger.
I have some packets of information, one for
in Outagamie County, Wisconsin. Plowman has already helped by putting 2 of the kids in daycare where
And I didn't get to be there.
it's difficult that you got to miss out on
It
that.
is.
So this is a typical day for you.
Yeah, multiple of these back to back, but yeah.
Whew, that was pretty heavy.
Plowman handles new cases, typically working with about 15 families at once. She's one of 28 social workers in a county of more than 180,000 people.
There are things that you can't fathom, you know, on a day-to-day basis. You can't fathom that a parent would do this to their child.
I pushed him into the wall. Her goal is to keep families together, but she's had to separate about a dozen of them in the past 3 years.
Have you ever had doubts about whether or not you should have removed a child from their home?
Oh yeah, there's definitely doubt. Am I doing the right thing? You know, who's going to suffer from this the most?
In 2017 alone, an estimated 1,720 children died from abuse and neglect in the U.S. More than a quarter of those children were previously known to Child Protective Services agencies. The issue came to light earlier this year with the death of 5-year-old AJ Friend in Illinois.
Investigators located what they believe to be AJ's body, buried in a shallow grave wrapped in plastic.
Police charged his parents with murder. Child welfare workers had been called to their home before. Stories like that frustrate Maine State Senator Bill Diamond, who's been focused on this issue for nearly 2 decades.
We're not making progress.
The former teacher has introduced a bill pushing for a long-term commission to study the problems within his state's Child Protective Services Department.
Kids are being abused right now while you and I are talking. They're being abused terribly. The only reason we don't know who they are is because they haven't died yet.
Experts say caseworkers in many areas are underpaid and overworked. Reports of abuse have increased more than 12% since 2013, partly because of tougher laws requiring the reporting of suspected abuse, along with an increase in calls related to the opioid epidemic. This mother says her addiction began with a prescription for painkillers after oral surgery 15 years ago.
Like, I've never been homeless. I would hate to become homeless, but there are worse things. Not being with my children would be one of them things.
Have you ever had your children taken from you?
Yes.
Here in Outagamie County, the number of kids in foster care has doubled over the past 4 years. But Brittany Plowman says she believes the children in this household are safe for now, with their father at home and with the additional assistance the county is providing.
Do you think this issue doesn't get enough attention?
More often than not, it's the bad stuff that surfaces and not the good. And I feel like that needs more attention because there's a lot of good that comes from child welfare. It's not just about removals.
The bottom line here is Child Protective Services workers say it's heart-wrenching to take kids away from their parents and try to avoid it unless it's necessary. They say they can reduce but can't entirely eliminate the possibility that parents or caregivers leave. So, you know, this hits close to home, I think, because I believe doing it. It does, you know,
Over and over again every day.
that are ready, they leave. They get
lose them
burned out.
why? They get burned out.
Yeah, it's that very, very difficult. But what I wanted to say too was the manager of that department, which I loved. She said that this is not just hard work, it's heart work.
Yeah.
And there's more of that interview that you can find on our website, cbsthismorning.com.
I would think at times it's heartbreaking work.
Yeah.
So grueling, but so important.
Mhm.
Drika, thank you very much.
Okay, fathers, we got through that live stream with all the technical difficulties. Thank you for staying, and hopefully brought something of education through instruction for you. Yes, the foster care system in the United States is completely broken. And like I said, my personal experience of a state juvenile probation officer with the state of Colorado, 10 years, almost 10 years as a PO. I saw too many bad things. And, the caseworker there talked about they don't focus on the good things. There's not many good things in the criminal justice system as far as I'm concerned. There just aren't. So that's my take. Okay, fathers, appreciate you. Want you to kiss them babies, love them babies. Tell them you love them, show them you love them. Provide that protection and safety, fathers, so you don't end up in a situation to where the government comes in and removes your kids, your children, your baby girls from you. All right? Okay. I live stream once a week, Fathers of Daughters. Appreciate you. And this is what I do. This is my way of giving back to all fathers. My book, Daddy's Girls, is available at Amazon.com. It's complimentary of my live streams and my videos that I'm sharing. This is my way of giving back. So I would encourage you to purchase my book at Amazon.com. It's self-published, and it will make a lot more sense once you read my book. It's an easy read. It's about 34 pages. I did not use any statistics or data at all. So it's a great book. It's called Daddy's Girls. It's a good read, and the videos complement my book. Okay, mis amigos, hasta la próxima semana. Paz. This is Ephraim B. Martin. Okay, fathers, I'm out. I'll holler at you next week. Peace.